When you're looking at log files, there's an awful lot of data that you can accumulate, particularly on a running system. Now, with this particular system, I don't do an awful lot with it. It just kind of sits here. I'm using it as a virtual machine for what we're doing here, and really not an awful lot else. But you can see that I'm accumulating log messages. You can see this column here. We've got the size of the log file. All of these logs really kind of accumulate data as the system is just running. What we can do is we can run the Logwatch command, and that will help us really parse through some of the important things that are going on in these log files that we may actually want to pay attention to. So let's take a look here inside the Logwatch directory. If I go into user share Logwatch, we've got the default configuration, and we're going to hop in there for just a second here. We'll take a look at the logwatch.conf file. So this is the configuration file, and you can see we've got yes equals true, equals on, equals 1. All of those things are the same. No equals false, equals off, equals 0. Our log directory is in var log. That's going to be pretty standard. This is going to output to stdout. Of course, we could also do a text format and an HTML format. We could output to a file. We could output to mail. We could do a base64 encode. There's a lot of options here around output in format. If we were going to mail, who are we going to mail to? I could mail to root. So the root user on this particular system is going to get the output of Logwatch. I could mail to a particular user at another domain or on another system using a different command format here. And that's all of the configurations around mail. So now we want to get into what we are going to be looking at. Now, by default, Logwatch is only going to look at the primary log file. So for example, if we had a varlog messages file, it's only going to look at varlog messages. It's not going to look at varlog messages.1 or varlog messages.1.gz, which are the rotated logs. So I have turned on archives here because I want to look at everything. So my range in this case is going to be all. I could do range today, range yesterday. If you were to run Logwatch every day, you could set it to just today or yesterday, depending on when you're actually running Logwatch. So a number of other settings here. The service that we're going to be looking at is all in this case, meaning it's going to look through everything that we actually know about here. So you can disable network services. You can enable network services if you didn't want to look at all of them. I'm actually going to disable this entry here, or not, because I'm not doing this as root. So I'm just going to leave that one alone, because it's not actually going to be able to write out because I didn't edit this as an administrative user. So we'll just leave that alone. So let's take a look in our services directory. You can see the different services here. So for example, let's take a look at the Samba config file. It's got a title of Samba. It's telling it which log file to look at. And then we're not really looking for much of anything else in this particular log file, but it does tell us which log file to look at. So let's take a look at secure.conf. Again, we've got a title of connections. Log file is secure. We've got some other things that we are going to look at here. So for example, we've got POP3 is going to be connections, and we're only going to output 500 of them. So we're going to ignore SSHD, STunnel, ProFTPD, SASL, AuthD, IMAPD, and so forth. So all of these we're not going to look at. You can see we've got a number of different configuration files here that tell Logwatch how to actually look at the log files and what to do with them once it is done looking at them. So now we can just run it here. And I'm going to run Logwatch, and you can see we've got a lot of output here. So I'm going to scroll back up, and you can see, in this case, this is the sudo log files. So I now have a very short list of the different things that I ran using sudo. And this is a really helpful little summary to have here so you can see the administrative commands that somebody actually ran. And you can see the user and what user effectively ran at. So this is my user, and I was effectively root because, of course, we can use sudo to run as any other user. So now we've got some errors that are showing up here that came from log files. If I scroll up, we've got some new groups that were created. We've got some password expiries that were changed for users. So we've got a fair amount of detail that is coming out of Logwatch. So you can use Logwatch as a great way of summarizing activity on your system by parsing through the log files. And again, you can turn on services, you can turn off services, you can specify exactly which log files to look at, and you'll get this nice little summary. So you can certainly use Logwatch within cron and have this run however often you wanted to, and then you could either specify today or all, depending on what log files you actually wanted to look at historically.